So today's another installment of my on-again, off-again sermon series, Lies My Pastor Told Me. Today we're taking on forgiveness, okay? So forgiveness is one of these big words that gets thrown around Christianity, but I think we have often heard sermons that don't necessarily teach biblical forgiveness, they teach some other form. And let me walk you through why. But to really understand why, I think we got to get in a time machine, okay? And this time machine is going to take us back to a magical time. The late 1980s, early 1990s. In this magical time, if you were to watch an American sitcom like Full House, anyone remember good old Full House? My Two Dads, Perfect Strangers, Night Court, Cheers, any number of other sitcoms, you would have learned that there were occasionally very special episodes. Right? And I'll remember the very special episode this evening on Full House. In such very special episodes, what they would do is they take a complex, tremendously deep, incredibly painful issue, usually of mental health. And for 25 minutes, they would highlight it in a completely arbitrary, often trivial way, which only was further exacerbated by the fact during the last 2 minutes of their 28-minute show, almost always the dad, but occasionally the mother, would sit down with the child, because for whatever reason, all mental health issues existed in children in the 1980s and 90s and no adults. And the dad would sit down and go, "Child, I'm going to give you wisdom that can fit on a bumper sticker." And the child would look up at their dad and go, "Dad, you're so wise. All my deep psychological issues have been solved with your bumper sticker." And then they'd close their very special episode with a phone number you could call. Right? We all lived through that. This was horrible. They took issues that were complicated, generational, serious mental health issues, and trivialized them in a 28-minute episode. They handed platitudes and bumper stickers to people who had real problems and issues that they were facing, real pain, hardship, and despair. They put a bumper sticker. "Here, have a cliche. You'll be all well now." Any of us who've lived long enough know cliches solve very little. Unfortunately, that same attitude that I like to call feel-goodiness, I know that's a made-up word, but I like it. And yes, I made it up. Feel-goodiness seeped into Christian forgiveness. Because most of us have heard some sort of sermon that says, God is forever forgiving, which is true. He will forgive you of anything, which is true. Therefore, what would Jesus do? We now have our bumper sticker. He would forgive everyone immediately. So should you. Forgive and forget. Our second bumper sticker. Problem solved. Walk away. And just as it trivialized the pain and despair, or just as TV trivialized the pain and despair of people dealing with serious mental health issues, the church trivialized the pain and despair that comes with trying to forgive and the complexity of what it means to forgive. Furthermore, by making it this idea that like someone wrongs you and your job as a Christian is simply be like, "Okay, you're good, I forgive you, I'm a Christian," without any sense of justice, put justice against forgiveness. But that's because it was a misunderstanding of Christian forgiveness. Because we as Christians believe both that justice is good and that forgiveness is good. That's the problem with feel-goodery forgiveness. So let's talk about biblical forgiveness. You may be thinking to yourself, "Hey, I heard that first lesson. It sounded like he just forgave his brothers for all sorts of horrible stuff." Well, sort of. If you actually read the whole story of Joseph, which sadly enough the RLC does not let us do, you would have learned that he had already really driven his point home that if they treated their youngest brother the way they treated him as youngest brother, he had an army at his disposal. He drove home to his brothers before the forgiveness that he was safe, that he was okay, but that they were never going to hurt him again. Don't believe me? Read the Bible. Read the whole story of Joseph. It's much more complicated than we make it out to be in the church. Joseph first made sure he was safe. He was the administrator of Egypt by the time he forgives everybody, right? Pretty safe. He has an army, one of the largest armies of the world, at his disposal. See, in biblical forgiveness, the first thing the victim needs to do is get safe. Get to a safe place, whatever that means. And obviously, every single case of being hurt, safety means something different, right? Because if it's your brother stole your Matchbox car, safety is getting over it. But if you're getting beaten, safety is getting the heck out of there, right? It may very well also be calling the police, right? Depends on your context. Depends what we're talking about, what safety means. First, you get safe. Second, if justice needs to occur, then justice occurs, because maybe you get safe and call the police, or maybe you call the police to get safe, right? Depends on the situation. You know what? Part of the thing that I see that is really sad about the feel-goodery forgiveness is I've had people who have been horribly harmed, let's say by a spouse. A spouse has horribly harmed them. They've had the courage to stand up and get out of there. They've had the courage to call the police and say, this person has done horrible, illegal things. Okay? And then I get this call months later, right? And their spouse has been sentenced to jail because their spouse did something really wrong. And that person goes and calls me and says, I feel so bad. And I go, why do you feel bad? And they say, I feel so guilty. And I'm like, why do you feel guilty? And they say, because I'm really happy he's in jail. Am I a bad Christian? And I say, no. It was just that he's in jail now. It's okay that you're relieved. It's okay that you're happy. You're celebrating justice. You're celebrating safety. That's okay. We believe in safety. We believe in justice. We also believe in forgiveness. See, feel-goodery forgiveness puts forgiveness and justice as opposites. Biblical forgiveness puts forgiveness and vengeance as opposites. What do I mean? Let's use that scenario again. Let's say you've gone through a horrible divorce, your spouse has done horrible things to you, it's years later. 5 years, 10 years, whatever, okay? We've all met two different types of people after they go through something that traumatic and that rough. One person is the person who can legitimately say, you know, I'm safer and I'm happier that I'm out of that situation, and I hope my former spouse will get the help they need, or I hope my former spouse will be okay, right? Where you truly can wish that former spouse well, even if you wish they stay on the other side of the country, or you wish they stay in jail. You can still wish them well and mean it in your own heart, even if you don't communicate with them. We've also met the person who stalks their former spouse on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and waits for every girlfriend or boyfriend that breaks up with him is like, ha, 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 you got fired, sucker. Right? We've all met that. One is walking towards forgiveness. The other is walking towards vengeance. Now, neither forgiveness or vengeance is for the other person. It's for you. See, the danger of what happens is this. If you are marching towards forgiveness, being able to wish the person well, even if you never want to see them again, you eventually find peace. Because you put that part of your life, that painful time, behind you. It's still part of you. You still remember it. You may still live with some of the trauma. But at the end of the day, you're not re-traumatizing yourself. You're taking the power back. Those who walk down the road of vengeance, even if you never act out of it, even if all you do is fantasize about your vengeance on the person, that will eat you up slowly. That vengeance, that fire you feel of anger, the fire is hatred, folks. And what it's doing is it's slowly burning your soul alive inside like a log in a fire. It may take years, it may take decades, but if you hold on to that vengeance, all you will have is the warmth of your own hatred. You ever met that little old lady or little old man who hates everything and everyone. I mean, they don't like anything. The way you become that person is to let hatred burn you alive from the inside out. The torture that is spoken of today in the gospel reading is not some hell in some other place, is not some vengeance of God coming down and doing something to you. He's not smiting you with lightning bolts. No, what he's warning you about is the torture you will put yourself through if you hold hatred in your heart long enough. Because it will destroy you from the inside out, and you won't even know it until it's too late, and maybe not even then. So as you go out today in your prayer life, what I ask you to ask yourself is, all of us have been wronged by someone, if not many someones out there. In each case, what path are you walking? The one of forgiveness, which leads to peace, or the one of vengeance, which leads to death?